Think scaling AI is hard? Think again. With Watson X, you can deploy AI across any environment. Above the clouds, helping pilots navigate flights, and on lots of clouds, helping employees automate tasks. On-prem, so designers can access proprietary data, and on the edge, so remote bank tellers can assist customers. Watson X works anywhere, so you can scale AI everywhere. Learn more at ibm.com/WatsonX. IBM. Let's create.
Hi. Sorry, did I startle you? When you're used to hearing a certain type of commercial, something like this can, well, take you by surprise. That's kind of how it is with the Lexus RX, a vehicle that has continued to defy expectations for over 25 years. From the first luxury vehicle of its kind, to the first hybrid luxury vehicle, to the only plug-in hybrid worthy of the RX name. We understand you want more than the everyday SUV. And isn't being understood an amazing feeling? Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, distribute it everywhere, and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit your podcasts right from your phone or your computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, and when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&As and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I feel so supported in the creation and distribution of my show. Spotify for Podcasters hosts masterclasses, office hours, and more to help creators develop and fine-tune their skills. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started. What the heck is up, everybody? Welcome back to 80/20. Today's episode is going to be all about journaling, how I journal, why you need to journal, and all that stuff in between, down to what you even need to write about in your journal. Real quick plug for the end of this episode, you definitely want to stick around because there is a little surprise just for you at the end. It's a tangible thing that you're really gonna love, and I hope that you don't skip over the end of this episode because it gets really, really good. I had so much fun recording this episode because I know that journaling is such an important thing for everybody. Journaling is truly mental hygiene, and I think that the world would be a much happier place if we all put pen to paper and if we all just spend a little bit more time processing our thoughts in a healthy way rather than turning to a wide variety of alternatives that people like to use to try to process their emotions, whereas all you really need is a pen and some paper, and you would be shocked what can happen when you work through all of the billion things that are going on in your brain. Before we get started, if there's one thing that you take away from this episode, I want it to be this, is that journaling is not complicated. And I get DMs all the time that are like, how do I start journaling? I don't know what to write about. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, literally grab a piece of paper and a pen and just write down your thoughts. That's essentially what journaling is. And I'm going to kind of go through a couple different methods of like what to write about and how to formulate your thoughts. But really just putting pen to paper and writing down the things that are going on in your mind, that's journaling. You're the only one who sees it. So like it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that people get too wrapped up in the idea that, oh, it has to be this way. It has to look a certain way. I have to make it some fancy bullet journal thing. I have to make my entire day wrapped around this, one page in my journal. And no, like my journal is the messiest place in my entire life. I think like there's not a room that's messier than my journal is, and that's okay because I'm the only one who sees it. At least I think so. I'm the only one who sees it, unless like someone's snooping in my room and they're like looking through my journal, and even then they probably wouldn't be able to understand what's going on in it because it is like gibberish to the untrained eye, which is totally okay because it's just for me. So I wanted to let you know that you can do it too. It's not hard. It's not complicated. It doesn't have to be challenging. Can it bring about challenges because of what you find through journaling? Yes, of course. But the act of journaling is not tricky. So I started journaling kind of like off and on in like elementary and middle school, I think. I was always one of those girls that was like, Dear Diary, I have a crush on so-and-so. So I've been journaling for as long as I can remember. I have a box under my bed filled with old diaries from when I was probably like 13. If you go back and read it, it's hilarious. And even like high school too, I have written down like, I would always journal about like who I had a crush on and like who broke my heart that week and just like dumb friend stuff. But that was the biggest part of my life as, you know, a preteen and a teenager. That's the stuff that mattered. And now obviously I journal still about like my friendships and my relationships, but on a much, much deeper level. I journal about my career. I journal about things that I want in my life, things that are going on in my life. We'll kind of get more into that in a little bit, but I've always kind of used journaling as an outlet for self-reflection and then self-discovery. And I think that that's exactly why you should journal too. If you've ever made a to-do list, if you've ever written down like a reminder to yourself, if you've ever just opened up like the notes app in your phone and written down like a feeling that you had or an idea that popped in to your head, like that is a form of journaling. And it's such a great way to get out of your own head. And even if you're the only one who's ever going to see it, you have too many thoughts like to process. Like I feel like a lot of us have so much going on in our own heads. Unless we journal or just write it down, it's just like, it feels like our heads are going to explode. So that's why you should journal, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of people are going to have their own ideas of like why they should journal, what their intentions might be. But at its core, journaling is just a way for you to keep your brain healthy. I have two little segments with a couple points, and the first one is 4 steps to setting up your journaling session, and then the other one is 5 things to write about or journaling methodologies. So let's get into the first little subsection, and that's 4 steps to setting up your journaling session. So this is like the physical act of setting up your journal and maybe the location, atmosphere, etc. So step number 1 is to get a good notebook and pens that you actually like. This is all personal preference. Nothing sucks more than writing in a journal that doesn't fit your needs. And I truly believe that only you can decide what this looks like for you through trial and error. So if you currently don't have a journal, I would recommend going to Staples or Target or even, Amazon, kind of like hit or miss because you can't really like feel the journals. But I prefer something that is bigger because I write bigger. So a little teeny tiny journal isn't going to work for me. I prefer like an 8x11, like real paper sized journal. The one that I have is college ruled, so the lines are smaller, which I do enjoy. The paper is pretty thick, so I can write on both sides, and then it has a nice leather hard cover, so I can take it with me if I'm going on like a trip or something. I don't have to worry about like a soft cover, like bending the pages or anything like that. And so I really love my journal. I got this one back in January. I'm still writing in it, but I've had plenty of other journals in the past that I didn't particularly like. And I've found that unless you love the notebook that you're writing in, you won't continue to write in it. So it's important to find something that you do enjoy. And like I said, this might take trial and error, but think about maybe what you like to write in for school. Or where you enjoy taking notes. And that might kind of help you decide what type of notebook you would want for your personal journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, but I do recommend that it is pen and paper rather than just journaling, quote unquote, on your phone and like the notes app, which is fine for like quick ideas. I use my notes app to just kind of jot down like little things that pop into my head throughout the day. But ultimately, if you're gonna sit down and have a journaling session, it's gotta be pen and paper. There's just something so therapeutic about having just like a stream of consciousness writing from like your hand out to the paper. It's a beautiful thing. Highly recommend true, good old-fashioned pen and paper. Step number 2 is to find a quiet place to just relax and let go of the stress of the day. If you are in a high stress environment, like if you're in your living room and like your roommates are all around you, you're gonna find it a lot harder to truly write down all the things that you're feeling. Whereas if you were in your room, you lit a candle, maybe you had the oil diffuser on, maybe you turn down the lights. I personally like to, I have a lamp that changes colors, and so I like to use the red light at night. And then that's a lot easier on the eyes. I can just kind of like write, relaxing, all that stuff. Or I like to sit in front of the window first thing in the morning and with the sunshine on my face, writing in my journal. It's really hard to fully immerse yourself into this mind, body, soul connection session if you're stressed out or if you're in a place with other people or with a lot of noises. My next tip is to do it first thing in the morning or the last thing that you do at night. There's a quote by Julia Cameron that I really like. Julia Cameron is the creator of a journaling methodology called Morning Pages, which we'll talk about here in a second, but there's a quote from her that I really, really like, and it says, "There's a time every morning when we're half awake and half asleep, not quite fully conscious. At those moments, we have access to our unconscious mind and our inner workings. But like dew on the morning grass, it will soon be gone without a trace. Listening to these tender morning wisps allow us to reach into our inner world, the deeper part of ourselves that helps guide us on our path of transformation." I was like, damn, because when I first started journaling first thing in the morning, my life got so much better and I just became so much more aligned with who I was supposed to be. I became so much more clear on what my goals were in life, and I just became so much more in tune with my transformation, my shift. And then in addition to journaling first thing in the morning, I also reflected on my day at night. Between those two, I was really, really able to hone in on what made me feel good, what made me not feel good, and what I should do in order to become the best version of myself, and what she needed and how she would want to live. And then I was also able to just find out so much more about myself through morning inspiration and then nightly reflection. I mean, ultimately, you decide whatever works best for you. There's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just kind of giving you guys my tips and tricks, but I would recommend, if you can, do it both in the morning and in the evening. But I would recommend, if you can't do it both in the morning and in the evening, do it in the morning. Commit to just 5-10 minutes in the morning and just write your little heart out. And I'll give you guys some methodologies here in a second. Step number 4 to creating your journaling session is to put on some calming music. I really like Peaceful Meditation on Spotify. It's a playlist, or I think it's called like Lo-Fi Study Beats or Chill Lo-Fi or something on Spotify. I really like those two playlists. They just help me get into like a focused mood and like an inspired mood. So would recommend those. If I can, I will link them in the show notes. And then step number 5 is to just take a couple deep breaths and begin putting pen to paper. Don't overthink it. Just let yourself flow and go. And now we're going to get into what exactly you should write about. So the first methodology that I would recommend for someone just starting out is Morning Pages. This method was coined by Julia Cameron, the gal who I mentioned earlier. If you're using this Morning Pages method, your task is to sit with your journal and write 3 full pages, just like a stream of consciousness, 3 full pages. And there's no time limit, there's no requirement of what you need to write about, just anything that comes to your mind, just write it down. And similar to Morning Pages, another method that I wanted to talk about was brain dumping, and I kind of intertwine the two a little bit. I try hard not to set like requirements for myself, but if you're just starting out, having a goal of 3 pages worth of stuff, personal reflection, emotions, good things, bad things, whatever you want to talk about in those 3 pages could be really, really beneficial. But for someone like me who just has about a billion things going on in her brain all at once, the concept of brain dumping works super well for me. And basically with a brain dump, mind map, whatever you really want to call it, I really just write down whatever comes to mind. It's not really formulated in like paragraphs. It's kind of all over the page. Sometimes it's like a couple full pages worth of a story or a feeling or realization that I had, but sometimes it's just like all over the page. It's like random little bubbles of thoughts and little pictures and ideas and words and just like random stuff. And so most of the time when I go into a brain dump journaling session, I challenge myself not to let the pen leave the paper until I've truly emptied my tank of thoughts. The third method that I like to use is listing things. I'm a very organized person, but when it comes to my journal, like I said earlier, I'm not super organized. So making a couple lists is a good way to try to stay organized. And I always make a list for my daily gratitude and positive affirmations. And so I'll just write down gratitude and then I'll draw a line and then I'll write down like 1, 2, 3. Sometimes I number all the way to 10 and I list all the things that I'm grateful for that come to mind. And then I write down a couple positive affirmations. And so I'm really big on affirmations. I think that complimenting yourself is something that we need to do way more often. And telling yourself that you are strong, you are confident, you are beautiful, you are one of kind, you are successful, you are on the perfect life path for you. Telling yourself those things until you believe it is absolutely critical. So I always write down a couple positive affirmations and just write down the first things that come to mind. I don't overthink it. I just write down whatever comes to mind. And then another cool thing that you could do with your affirmations too is go into the mirror and look yourself in the eye and actually tell yourself those things. And it might seem really silly at first, but if you're just writing them and you don't actually practice them, you don't actually believe them, it's like, what's the point? Moving on to the fourth method of journaling that I recommend is the practice of writing a letter that you're never going to send. So this is perfect for someone who needs like a little bit of closure, or maybe even writing a letter to your past self or to your future self. Or if you're the type of person who kind of always has to have the last word, whether it's like with a friend or an ex or even your past self, or you want to talk to your future self or write a letter even to your current self to let the today version of you know what maybe your future self wants to hear. I don't know, we're getting kind of deeper. But anyway, writing a letter that you're never going to send is a great way to just let all your feelings out and then just close the journal and move on with your day. This is a practice that I use probably more often than I would like to admit, but it's a really cool way to first off see your progress, because when you go and read this letter back like a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, a year later, you'll realize how much has changed and how much whatever the reason why you even had to write the letter in the first place, how that event, that problem, that obstacle was supposed to happen because it got you to where you needed to be in the future. It's also a really cool thing to do when you're kind of moving into like a new era of your life. And so recently I kind of talked about in like the welcome episode of this season 2 of the podcast, and I talked about this a little bit in another episode called like why I took a break from social media. And when a lot of things are changing all at once, it's a really cool way to reflect upon all the things that are happening in your life, especially when change is coming so rapidly. And then it's a really cool way to kind of move forward and kind of close out a chapter and move into a new one. The fifth and final journaling method kind of has a little bit to do, well, it has everything to do with the surprise that I hinted at the beginning of the episode. But first things first, it's easier for me to show you what we're talking about rather than tell you. So I'm going to give you a bit of instructions and then we'll kind of chat about this whole thing. If you head to lilyrayco.com/join, you'll be prompted to create an account for a platform called Lil Circle. And I'm calling it Lil Circle because there's an episode coming very, very soon called ditch the drama and find your people. And in that episode, we talk all about the importance of having a tight-knit circle of people who love you and people who support you. And I'm a firm believer that you are the product of the people that you spend the most time with. And so having a supportive circle, a supportive group of people that always welcome you in with open arms and want you to truly succeed and want you to feel loved and want you to be the best version of yourself, that's what a circle is all about. So if you're listening to this podcast, you are a part of this circle. If you happen to be driving, you can always pause this episode and then come back to it later. But if you're just sitting, I recommend that you pull out your computer, pull out your phone, and head to lilyrayco.com/join, because it's a lot easier for us to kind of talk about this while you're seeing it in front of you rather than just listening to it. lilyrayco.com/join. It will take you to Lil's Circle. And all you have to do is hit new user, create an account, and then you just enter your email, you create a password, and then you can use your full name. And then it'll just use your name to generate a username for you. And once you create an account, you're automatically added into the 3 groups that are inside of Lil's Circle, and more groups will be added in the future. But right now, I really wanted to streamline this online platform and make it really simple, really user-friendly. And you guys know I'm all about value, so I wanted each group to hold value. I talk a lot more about Lil's Circle, why I created it, all the different groups, all the different things inside in the Welcome to Season 2 episode. So if you want to learn more about the platform, please go listen to that episode. It will be linked in the show notes. But I'm talking about this in this episode today because there is a journal prompts group, and this is the 5th and final method that I recommend for people who want to start journaling. This is probably the most user-friendly method, especially for people who literally just do not know what to write about. For people who maybe have a certain goal in mind, maybe you want to work on a specific relationship, maybe like with yourself or with food or with someone else. Maybe you want to work through more ways to be productive. Maybe you want to work through the feelings that you have while you're on your period. Maybe you want to work through different goals that you have within different areas of your life, with your relationships, with money, with school, with career. All of those things will be covered in the Lil's Circle Journal Prompts group. New prompts will be posted every Monday, and I'll do some weekend pop-ups here and there, but I highly, highly, highly recommend joining this group, which all you have to do is sign up for Lil's Circle, and then you're automatically enrolled in the group. But if you want to journal with me, if you want journal prompts for literally every occasion, they will end up in this group on this page inside of our circle. I will leave a link in the show notes. It's lilyrayco.com/join. Create a new user and log in to Lil's Circle, and you will automatically be enrolled in the journal prompts group. You guys definitely do not want to miss out on this group. By the way, it's completely free. I'm just doing this because I know that people need it. No hidden costs or anything like that. I just want to share journal prompts with you guys. And I feel like a lot of times Instagram isn't the place to do it. I feel like we go on Instagram and just end up scrolling and scrolling. It's like maybe we go on Instagram to find a recipe, or maybe we go on Instagram to find journal prompts, or maybe we go on Instagram to find advice. And then we end up getting wrapped into this comparison trap. We end up looking at all the numbers, the followers, the likes. We end up doing all the things that we know we shouldn't be, even though we were looking for something in order to better ourselves. So I wanted to separate the two. So if you want journal prompts, you know where to find them. The link will be in the show notes, lilyrayco.com/join. There's a couple other groups on there as well that you don't want to miss out on. But like I said, I talk about that in the welcome episode. So definitely check that out. I'm super excited for this group, and I really, really hope that you guys check it out. I think that is all I have for you today on journaling. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope that it inspired you to grab pen, grab paper, and get to work. Tune into your intuition, channel your emotions, and connect with your soul, all through journaling. Thank you for listening to this episode of 80/20. If you enjoyed it, please let me know by dropping a rate and a review. This helps more people just like you find and listen to the show. Don't forget to follow me, Lily, on Instagram. My username is @LilyRayco. That's LILYRAKOW. And follow the podcast Instagram page as well, which is 8020pod. That's 8020pod on Instagram. New episodes of 80/20 go live every Monday and Thursday, or subscribe to stay up to date with the latest.